What's going on, lads and lasses? Welcome back to 100% Mags. So there is plenty of transfer news to talk about, of course, with Tyler Diblin picking up interest from quite a few different clubs, somebody that Newcastle United has been linked with in this window. Obviously, Jonathan David, of course, has now just been talked about with a possible move to Newcastle United, as of course reports are going around at the moment, but we'll get into all of that in this video. Obviously, still talks about Almiron to the MLS as well, like Kelly to Juventus, and then also plenty of talk about other players as well that could be possibles for coming into Newcastle United, maybe in this window or the summer window. But let's get into it. Let's talk about it. Hit that like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and let's dive straight into it. So we're going to start off with, of course, the outgoings first. So obviously the talk is still going on with Juventus for Lloyd Kelly. Juve are keen to strike a loan deal with Newcastle United for Lloyd Kelly. That would include a buy option. Reports in Italy this morning suggest Juve are still keen on the Magpies defender, despite seeing initial interest turned down. The Serie A club are hoping to secure a deal before the transfer deadline day, which would see the 26-year-old join them this month before making the move permanent in the summer. Now, of course, there was reports going around that he was on 100 and odd grand a week. Well, according to a little article from a company called Sports View, they are actually saying that he's actually only on 35,000 a week, according to their reports, and saying that the defender would have to work hard to get into the team at Juve, but the head coach Thiago Motta wants him, then at least he would have a chance. So obviously people will be thinking, why is Juve trying to buy Lloyd Kelly? Well, Juve is having a lot of problems at the moment, so of course it would be a really good signing for them. It's a 26-year-old player that is coming in, and yes, he hasn't really impressed us because he hasn't really had much time to get into the team and be able to play, but when he has played, he hasn't looked that great. So obviously, Newcastle United are looking at the options. There's reports going around that we have rejected a loan already, which had a £13 million pound offer in to buy the player at the end of the loan, but Newcastle don't want anywhere near that fee. Newcastle want more than the 13 million. Newcastle value Lloyd Kelly at around 25 to 30 million, so it's about 30 million euros, as we have covered already on that fee on a previous videos talking about Lloyd Kelly. But it looks like this one's still got legs in it, so this might still be going on when we get to the transfer deadline day in another, I think it's about another 14 days left of this January transfer window. So this might still be going right down to the wire on this one. But hopefully, if it is, we've got a replacement in there, because we definitely need to have somebody coming in that department if we're going to let Lloyd Kelly move on a loan to Juventus. Moving away from the Lloyd Kelly talk, of course, there's still the ongoing talk of Almiron moving to the MLS. Obviously, Fabrizio Romano putting his input on it now from Mate Moreto, who is also saying Atlanta United are closing in on Almiron deal with Newcastle moving, with the Newcastle move being completed. The transfer fee around £10 million, of course, according to Fabrizio Romano and Mate Moreto. Of course, sorry if I might have butchered his name there. But that looks like that one will be getting done. As I did say, it was a done deal, but there's been a little bit of a delay on it, and I think it's still going ahead. But I don't think he'll be available for the game against Southampton this week. Of course, on Saturday, I don't think we'll be seeing Almiron in the team selection for that game against Southampton down at St Mary's. Of course, let's talk about the incomings now. And of course, actually, sorry, before we go to talk about the incomings, there is one more outgoing to talk about, and it is, of course, Sean Longstaff. He's been heavily linked with a move away from Newcastle United in this window, but at the moment, there's not too many suitors from what I can see. There has been talk of a few different clubs that may be interested in buying Sean Longstaff from Newcastle United. One of them being Everton, of course, which has been watching Longstaff for quite a while now. Obviously, there's been talks about Ipswich as well, having a look at Longstaff. And I could see, him going to either one of them teams, probably Everton a little bit more than Ipswich, but would get a lot more game time, I believe, Ipswich, because they have a much better chance of putting them in playing in first team. And I think at the moment, that's something, Longstaff will be looking at trying to get a lot more first team football. Obviously, yesterday as well, we're seeing the outgoing of Alex Murphy, or Robocop, as I like to call him, on a loan, of course, to Bolton Wanderers. And we all know what Bolton used to be back in the day, under Sam Allardyce, with many different big named players playing for them. And it's a shame to see how far they fell down, over the years. But that's football at the end of the day. And, hopefully one day we will probably see them back up in the Premier League at some point, just like we've gotten the chance to see, Ipswich and Nottingham Forest and other teams coming up as well that we've wanted to see back in the Premier League. But Sean Longstaff is another one that could be going in this window. Moving on to the possible incomings, either in this window or the summer window, and that is now Tyler Dibbling. Of course, like I said, there's reports, of course, of multiple interest in Tyler Dibbling now. RB Leipzig are ready to make a €30 million bid for the Southampton youngster, according to reports over in Germany. The 18-year-old is on Newcastle United's radar, and we are looking to secure one of the top English talents in Premier League football. He has enjoyed a breakthrough season at the Saints, but could move this summer with the relegation looking increasingly likely at St Mary's, and are said to want at least 25 million for their hot prospect, with Leipzig now thought to be ready to test their resolve. Of course, according to reports from Florian Plattenberg, he's saying that the Bundesliga side want to sign the 18-year-old and have already made it known they'd be willing to pay 25 million for his signature. Southampton, however, are demanding much more than this figure, partly due to the level of interest, particularly from clubs in the Premier League. And with, of course, us being one of the teams, it is well documented that we are one of the teams looking at bringing Tyler Dibbling in. Obviously, Eddie Howe rates him quite highly, and Newcastle hierarchy rate him quite highly as well. So that is definitely a player that is on our radar to be brought in. But it looks like we may have to act a little bit quicker than what we wanted to, with it being talked about that he was on the summer list of targets to bring in, along with, of course, Brian Mbeumo from Brentford. But it looks like we're going to have to maybe act a little bit faster and maybe try and see if we can bring him in this January transfer window instead. But it's thought Southampton have also joined the race for Dibbling, who is currently injured at the moment and expected to miss the next 4 to 6 weeks after picking up a knock in the game against Man United, where, of course, they lost 3-1 against Man U. But looking at it, I can see Tyler Dibbling coming to Newcastle United. He's a player that, ticks the boxes, as I've just said, for Eddie Howe. Again, somebody that Eddie would be able to mould into a fantastic player, something in the similar mould to what we've seen with, Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes as well, a little bit, and of course Jacob Murphy, Joe Linton, players that were already here, or players that have come into the team, and Eddie and his coaching team have been able to mould them into fantastic talents. I think Tyler Diblin is another one, that we could see done exactly like that. Moving on to the final piece of news. Yes, you might have guessed it by the title already, by the thumbnail. Newcastle United are looking at, of course, and by what I said at the beginning of the video, Newcastle are looking at Jonathan David from Lille. Newcastle are, of course, looking at bringing in Jonathan David from Lille. Now, people may be thinking, why do we need another striker? Why do we need somebody that will probably want to be first choice striker at Newcastle United? Well, I can tell you now, he's a versatile player, somebody that would tick the boxes for Eddie Howe, because he can play on the wings, he can play striker. And Newcastle have been scouting him since last weekend, apparently, when Lille won 2-1 over Nice last weekend in Ligue 1. And the Canadian striker was a part of that squad. And of course, these reports are coming from Lee Ryder this morning. Now, yesterday, you might have remembered I talked about Jonathan David and saying that Newcastle United should be looking at bringing in Jonathan David because he will be a free transfer in the summer. But we could maybe, work out a deal with Lille to bring him in this window. Well, it looks like Newcastle United might be going down that avenue and we might be, going to bring Jonathan David in. Don't know if it'll be in this window. Only time will tell, but it could possibly be if we can beat away the rest of the teams. Then it could possibly be in the summer window, if not in this window. But Jonathan David is being scouted by Newcastle United. And of course, Lille play tonight against Liverpool. So I will be obviously keeping an eye on that game. Watching that game to see, how Jonathan David does in the game. And see, what happens as well. Because that will be an area I'm sure that the scouts will be at tonight. It'll be a game that Newcastle scouts will be watching, and a number of scouts will be watching with this lad being a free transfer in the summer window. Of course, he's going to be a hot property, a hot prospect for a lot of teams to be jumping on to bring to their team because he has been absolutely on fire in Ligue 1. He's been scoring some goals, he's been scoring assists, he's been doing plenty of brilliant stuff over there in France. And I think this could be a chance for the Canadian striker to finally make his move to arguably the best league in the world in the Premier League. Because just looking at how this season's played out, there's been a very, very tough season, very competitive. There's very little gaps between teams from 10th to, 16th, and from 4th right the way down to 10th. There's a small margins between in points, so it's been a very, very competitive Premier League season. But finally, to end off the video, we are looking at bringing in players at least, so that is a positive. It's nice to see, that there is talk of Newcastle United bringing in players, because in this window there's been quite a lot of talk of players moving from Newcastle United and not much talk of players coming into Newcastle United. So finally we're getting a little bit of news on the incoming side of things from journalists and social media, of course, but let's just wait, see what happens. Of course, like I say, there's about 14 days left, until the transfer window closes. But let's hope by that time, Newcastle United have gotten a few players off the books that are, taking up a bit wage here and there. And hopefully we've signed a couple of players in as well. The women are doing some fantastic moves, by the way. I've got to say, just to end off the video, the lasses have been doing some absolutely fantastic moves. They've brought in, of course, Charlotte Wardlaw from Chelsea. There's Poppy Pritchard coming on loan from Man City as well. And then, of course, there's also Freya Gregory coming in on a permanent deal from Aston Villa as well. And Charlotte Wardlaw's already played a game for Newcastle. Unfortunately, she did score an own goal in the game. Poppy Pritchard as well, coming in on loan, like I say, from Man City. So some fantastic moves from the lasses side of things, and you know, getting themselves ready for the second half of the Women's Championship. Hopefully this season we'll see the lasses make another back-to-back promotion, and if they do, then they will be in the WSL this time next season. Of course, if they were to get another back-to-back promotion under Becky Langley and co. But let us know your thoughts anyway down in the comments below. Hit like, share, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff. And I'll see you all for the next one. Away lads.